G'day everyone, another episode of the Purple Coloured Glasses. I'll be going through my tips for the week, how I think Freo will go. Let's dive into it. So the first game we've got up is the Doggies against Carlton at Marvel Stadium. The time of recording this, the game's just started, but I've already got my tip locked in for the game and I've gone the Doggies by 17 points. Why do I think the Dogs will get up? I thought there were parts of their game last week that weren't as polished as it could be. I thought some of their key tools let them down a bit. I didn't think Shaki had a good game. And I think some of the press conference drama with Beveridge afterwards is probably going to be a bit of a siege mentality, and they're really going to want to bounce back. For Carlton, I definitely can see them getting up for this game. I think Chera being ruled out for sort of COVID protocols is a bit of a loss for them. I think Walsh is coming back into the team. It'll be a close game. I don't think Carlton will get blown away, and there should be some real optimism after their result last week. They've got the hoodoo off the back. But I'm tipping the Doggies in this one. I just think they're going to beat most teams this year, and I don't think Carlton should feel too bad if they go down in this one. Next game, we've got Sydney up against Geelong at the SCG on Friday. Quite a tough game to pick. I think Jeremy Cameron's going to miss after the rib injury he had last week. Sydney looked really good, probably a lot better than I thought they would be going into this year. I thought they'd be figured out a bit. But I've gone the upset here, and looking at the sort of the way tips are going, this is quite an even one, looking at what people are putting in. But I think Geelong last week, they sort of showed they're like the strong team that make their disposals mean something, bigger bodies, more mature, and they should get over the top of the Swans in this one. I think Buddy doesn't kick 1,000. I think the Cats back line stay on top of him. So we might have to wait another week for Buddy to get to 1,000 goals. Next up on Saturday, first game on Saturday, we've got Pies against Adelaide. Pies played better than I thought last week. I think it probably just didn't do some of the due diligence in terms of looking at some of the matchups against the Saints midfield. I thought it'd be really tough for Adelaide with Rory Sloane being out through suspension, but he had that overturned. I think I saw Lairds coming back for this game. I think Adelaide have a chance. They played quite well in that Freo game for portions of it. But I think Collingwood at home, they've got a fairly healthy lineup, playing with some confidence, bit of swagger. I think they'll get over the Crows in this one. I'm going to tip the Pies by about 20 points. Then we've got the Bombers against Brisbane, and man, the Bombers have absolutely copped it in the media this week. And I think rightly so. They getting a lot of cheap possessions. They were the only team really this last week that were given a bit of a touch up, losing by 66 points to the Cats. And I think they'll bounce back. They'll probably come out in the first quarter firing, but I think Brisbane are just a better, more mature team. They'll come to Melbourne and get the job done. There is always a bit of a question mark on some of the interstate teams when they travel, but I do think Brisbane will do this quite comfortably, get over the line by about 25 points. Then moving on to the later game, we've got Port Adelaide against Hawthorne Saturday evening. Really, Port should win this easily, even with their injuries. They're the much better team, sort of historically. They're playing at home. The Hawks are a younger side. And the quality of the game in the Hawks-North Melbourne game wasn't really of the highest standard. So even though the Hawks got the points, I think they'll be up against a much better side this week away from home. So tipping the Port Adelaide Power to win that one quite easily, and they'll get up by quite a few. I actually don't think it'll be a huge flogging. I think it'll only be like three to 4 goals. So was that 18 24 points? Yeah. Next game is really interesting. I think this one has the potential to be an upset, which is the Saturday evening game. We've got Gold Coast against Melbourne. I'm not brave enough to tip Gold Coast, but the early part of the year is when Gold Coast historically played quite well. Maybe Melbourne a bit overconfident, think no one can touch them. They go up to the Gold Coast and they get a jump on them. But I don't think that'll happen. I can see Gold Coast are leading at quarter time or half time, but Melbourne slowly reel them in. And I'm predicting a fairly tight margin in this one. I think it'll only be a goal in it. Then we can move on to the Sunday games. So we've got North Melbourne against West Coast. I probably would have started out the year tipping North Melbourne in this one, but I'm leaning more and more towards West Coast. North don't seem to have that sort of end of season run they had last year where it looked like some of their younger mids were playing with confidence. They were running on top of the ground. Confidence seemed high. They sort of started the year off. They had a decent game against Hawthorne on paper where they could have snatched a win. This is another one where they can win. But I think West Coast have this sort of siege mentality going on. They're going to have some players come back by the sounds of it. Jack Darling might play. Rioli got off his suspension. So they'll actually have a decent strength lineup. And they'll be looking at this going, most people think we won't go over to Melbourne and be able to knock off North. North did beat West Coast in Perth last year. But I think it's one of those games, it's just the mentality side of things. West Coast I think will come out firing. And they'll want to go into the derby with a bit of form. So I'm going to go with West Coast in that one. Then later on we've got the Richmond GWS game, which I chopped and changed quite a few times. I ended up going with GWS when I was sort of putting this together yesterday. I think a concern for GWS is who is going to kick their goals. So they still have Toby Green out suspended. Himmelberg, yeah, not bad, but what's the supporting cast around him? Is it Bobby Hill? Is it Brander? Are they relying on their mids to kick some goals as well? Challenge with Richmond is their midfield is so thin. I was tipping GWS before I saw Dustin Martin was out. Prestia getting injured last week in the game, I think, was a big factor in that result. I think Lambert's still out. Voston's still out. Pretty thin. Really, GWS should go over there and beat them. So I'm going with them. And then the last game of the round, Freo up against Saints. I'm tipping Freo in this one. I'm feeling a little bit better about this game, knowing that Paddy Ryder's not coming back. I feel like Saints always play better when Paddy Ryder and Marshall play together. And is it Marshall or Rowan? Yeah, anyway, they're dual rock combo that they've got. Their smalls were put under the spotlight a bit, and they could come out firing, and we don't have amazing small lockdown defenders, so that's where I think they could get hold of us. Sounds like Darcy will come back in, which is a plus. Fife, unfortunately, sounds like he's going to have a bit of time out of the game, getting some back scans. Could be anything from 1 to 2 weeks. It's just a sore back, needs time over it, but it could actually be something a lot more serious. Saints midfield is quite vanilla, like the Jack Steele, but sort of outside that, who else have they got? So really Brayshaw, Sarong, Mundy, Brody should get the job done in the middle. You think Alex Pearce takes Max King. He kept Ben King last year goalless. I think was the only key defender to do that. So I think we've got the tall matchups covered. It's more the smaller ones I'm concerned about. And Freo need to kick straight. I'm not going to be able to watch this game live, unfortunately, this week. But there's nothing more frustrating than just being totally dominant and then not taking your chances. We don't want to have kicked 6 goals 12 to half time and left the door open for the Saints, because they'll come back with a vengeance and run over the top of us. We're not going to keep getting away with it week after week after week. So we just need to make sure that when we get our chances, we close the door and not let the team that we're playing come back. So that's my tips for the week. Let me know what you think. Drop a comment, leave me a like. Thanks everyone. Catch you later.